welcome to another Sunday Talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts, Noor Kyle.
And I am the other one of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali. You can tell the difference between us because I'm not blonde.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us, whether you're here live or watching on the replay. We have a number of lovely people here, and it is the weekend after Thanksgiving. So, we may have people trickle in. People may be traveling and not able to show up. If you're watching on the replay instead, yay! Thank you for being here as well. And of course, our little YouTube spiel is one way that is one of the best ways to support us is to subscribe to our content. And if you're already doing that, you can always comment or leave a thumbs up and all of that good stuff, because we do appreciate interacting with people who view our content and want to participate in the conversation in whatever capacity works for you. And of course, if you'd like to join us live, you can either join our mailing list, which will get you the link to our Zoom calls, or you can join our Facebook forum, which we call very directly the Nine-Sided Circle Forum. And I think the links to both of these things are in the description.
Yes, or you could do both.
You could do both, yes, of course. Whatever feels good to you. Is there anything else I need to add for now?
No, like our videos, subscribe to our channel.
We never say share them, but
share them everywhere. If you really enjoyed this, share this to your friends. If you hate it, share it to your enemies. It's all good.
Either way, it's all good. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So this evening we are continuing an ongoing conversation in which we kind of work through the dialogue between some stuff that Gurdjieff taught in his Fourth Way school and stuff that is very classically part of the Sufi tradition at large. And this time around, we're talking about the formation of the four souls of a human being. And for the past 2 weeks, we've been talking about that on Sundays. So you have 2 videos prior to this one that you can view if you'd like.
And you'll find links to it up here at the end of this video.
Yeah, so don't worry, we'll connect you with those. And this time we'll be talking about the third. This is the Sultan-i-Ruh.
Yes. Or to say it properly in Arabic, more or less. I'm sorry, Wael, but this is the Al-Ruh Al-Sultani.
Yes.
Yes.
We're doing the best we can within our limited capacities, so you'll have to just bear with us as we do our best to communicate these really cool things to you.
Yeah, I can mispronounce words in 7 different languages.
Yeah. So the way I said it, that's like the Farsi.
That's the Farsi way.
And in my bad Farsi, yes. So again, we do the best we can.
Yep, we can speak bad Farsi and bad Arabic.
Skills.
Truly.
Okay, so this term, what is it? Say it again, I'm spacing out.
No, let's just stick with the Farsi because it's the easiest to say.
Okay, Sultan-i-Ruh translates roughly to the kingly soul.
Yes. Or the authoritative soul is another way to translate it.
It doesn't necessarily.
Yeah.
We're always trying to, lean into challenging genderedness in ways that are stereotyping and limiting. So this is not about maleness, is it?
No.
Kingliness. Yeah, this is, I think authoritative is good. It's about it's got a sense of maturity to it, doesn't it?
Yes.
Emotional maturity.
Can't get there without being an adult.
Hey,
or you don't want to.
Where do we begin?
Where would you like to begin? I'm making her work more because she likes to be shy and and hide behind everything. And people don't realize that she's actually the mastermind behind all of this. She is the one behind the curtain. She is the
Pulling the
hidden teacher.
strings.
Yeah. I'm just her front man. And if you
Well,
think I'm kidding, I'm not.
I mean, you should see all the, the way that we divide the work is, in many ways, it's equal. I find myself doing more of the clerical stuff these days, which is good. That's a good way for me to grow into my place in the work. Anyways,
Anyway,
topic at hand. When we say emotional maturity, I think that's an important thing to consider, because we're not just talking about emotional aliveness. At this
no.
point, we have achieved that already, haven't we?
Yeah, if we have been doing our work, we have, most
Mm-hmm.
certainly. Now,
Yeah.
you're all familiar with Gurdjieff's uh, bodies, right? You have your physical man, man one, two, or three. Then we talked about last week the therein is about what Gurdjieff would have called the magnetic center. This particular soul formation would be the what he would call the higher emotional center. And that's a whole different thing than what he calls the lower centers. The higher emotional center, as he said, it is already fully developed in you, as is the higher intellectual center. It's just that you have no connection to it. The connection between your, for lack of a better word, lower centers. I hate that term
It's
because
an
they aren't
unfortunate
lower.
term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your common centers and your extraordinary centers is your magnetic center, is your Gurdjieff called it the Kejjan body. Uh, and it's not a body, but it's a thing. That creates the bridge that gives you the contact to these two higher souls. And without that bridge, you can't really get there from here. So, what is this soul all about? That's the question. This soul is where, and this is why it's called the Sultan-i-Ruh, is because this soul is where your conscience lives. Your lower centers have mechanical conscience. You know, it's basically stimulus response, conditioned responses to certain stimuli. This is real conscience.
So this goes beyond just ouch, that feels bad.
Yeah.
Avoid. Not
Or,
good.
oh, I feel guilty because I did not fulfill what some priest told me I should be doing. And so I will go off and hate myself for a week.
Or I am a bad child and now I must, find a way to earn being a good child, that kind of thing.
Yes. This is the seat of what we would call objective conscience, the true knowing of right from wrong. This is for the people who ate of the fruit of the tree. Y'all remember that story, right? Yes, no, maybe?
Nods. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe helpful if you could just.
Oh, yeah, you guys are not going to have been
That's
as
right.
exposed to this. So,
No
according
worries.
to Judeo-Christian mythology, um, God created a single man and a single woman and put them in a garden and said to them, you can eat any fruit from any tree in this garden except for the fruit from this one tree here, which was the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. In other words, human beings were living without conscience, because conscience is the knowledge of the difference between that which is good and that which is evil. And of course, what happens is they eat of the fruit. I mean, according to the legends, a serpent came down and tricked the woman into eating the fruit, who then tricked the man into eating the fruit. I'm pretty sure that there was more going on than that. It was a setup from the start. God wanted us to know the difference between good and evil because it's the only way we can have free will. And so we got tricked into eating this fruit. And ever since then, we have had the capacity to understand the difference between good and evil. A tiger doesn't need this, right? A tiger sees a little baby lamb and he chomps it because it's food to him. He's not doing it out of any sense of anything other than his biological imperative. We can choose not to eat our children because we understand that that's a bad thing. Even though I'm pretty sure that my mother occasionally looked at me and my brothers and sisters with the thought of they had to look nice in an oven with a little mint.
So yeah, there's this sense of relating emotionally to cause and effect, it sounds like.
Yeah, and to understand that there is conscience, there is understanding, and this understanding comes through objective empathy, which is also a part of this soul. Our usual empathy is the idea of, oh, I think of what happened to this person, and then I imagine it happening to me, and I feel bad because it would suck if it happened to me. So I will feel bad for this person. And that's not what this is. This is something way deeper than that. This is understanding the connection between all living beings. And not just humans. Humans are the easiest usually. Actually, dogs are the easiest. Dogs are much easier to experience empathy with than humans. But, and cats are the hardest. But that's what this soul is about. And we cannot evolve without this. If we do not get this connection, our evolution as sentient beings just stops right there. You can be a very, very good machine, but you're still a machine. And that's okay. That's what a lot of people want. They're perfectly satisfied with that. And we should not denigrate their choice to go this far and no further. For some of us, we went a little bit further. And I will tell you that the fourth soul has to do with the tree of life, as opposed to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But we'll get to that next week. That's just a little teaser to whet your appetite, as it were. So any questions so far before I continue to blather on about all of this?
Okay, so all right. Sounds like everybody's on board. Oh, hint, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Does the fourth soul refer to the ikhtiyar, the free choices that we make?
Actually, the third soul refers more to that. The fourth soul, it's the Ruh-Al-Sultani, the soul of the soul. It's how do I explain that? You're making me think ahead. The fourth soul has to do with the Nur Muhammad.
Okay,
the
Nur Muhammad.
original light. Yeah, and so that's a big subject.
Okay.
And we will touch upon that a great extent next week. But if I get off on that, I'll never be able to finish this. So I hope you will forgive me. But this soul has to do with your ability to have free will and make free choice. Somebody who is in the first soul, which includes the first three kinds of men, according to Gurdjieff, has no free will. They are, by and large, stimulus response creatures who have fooled themselves into thinking that they have free will. You don't really get free will until you get here, because you cannot have free will without real conscience.
Mhm.
I mean, you get little bits of it here and there. So,
Mushta,
yes.
will you explain how exactly, like, without conscience, we would not have a free will?
Does a robot have free will?
A robot might not, but I might be able to decide something without having conscience in me, right? Like just applying my intellect uh, and observing, because this is the mechanical response. Maybe I choose a different response and then doing it, right? Need
Yeah,
not
and
involve.
this gets us into a very interesting discussion about what is free will and do we have it or not. And a lot of philosophers have come to the conclusion that we don't have free will at all. Personally, I think that that's crazy, but it's interesting because they would say, you think you've made a choice, but that choice is predicated on all of these deep things inside of you that are being stimulated, as opposed to you actually choosing freely in and of your own will to action. And in some ways, this is a bit solipsistic. I realize it makes you wonder what these people are thinking. Because no free will? Of course I have free will. But there's a story, and it goes sort of like this. Mullah Nasruddin was called before Emperor Timur. And this is the guy we know in the West as Tamerlane. But his name was Timur. And Timur says, how do we know that there is no free will? And Mullah replies, well, it's simple. If I strike you, then automatically horrible things will rain down upon me. And Timur realized he was absolutely right. If Mullah punched him in the nose, Timur would automatically kill him. And that's how most of us are, whether we like to admit it or not. We react to things rather than being able to respond to them consciously. Now, you, of course, because you are definitely have done work on yourself and such like, might occasionally react from free will. I'm talking about these other people out here. Not anybody who's listening to this. You guys are all cool. You're in the club. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to add is, let's say if through work we've been able to develop an observing eye, and this observing eye is able to to some extent, right? Pause and exert control over, okay, there's a negative or a reaction. Let me pause the reaction. Let me bring in some space to think about what's the right action, then perform that right action.
Yeah.
Now that
You noticed
I-
the key word there. You've been doing the work, right? Which makes you a very, very small percentage of humanity. Doing the work, this is why we do the work, is to first of all break the shackles of our own stimulus response conditioning. So you are giving me a condition under which you've already begun to do that. So of course, free will is going to sneak through. And that also suggests that you have begun building a connection to the Sultan-i-Ruh. Because that's what you find when you make this pause. Gives a chance for that to happen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. So sometimes you will get sporadic connections to this, even, and they happen in an accidental way. This is interesting because when you do, this will give you, we say hal, states. And oftentimes they will give us states of ecstasy to connect to this, or states of absolute abject tragedy to connect to them. It can go either way. It can be a very strong polarity. And it will give us, I think of them as religious experiences, because when you touch this soul, this is the first soul that really can perceive the one, or at least the presence of the one. And so when you get the ecstatic states, it's like, oh my God, I feel in the presence of God. When you get these negative states, that it becomes, oh my God, I feel my disconnection from the presence of God. And this happens more or less randomly. If you accidentally get stuck in this state in the Sultan-i-Ruh, you will tend to develop oftentimes a religious fanaticism because you have brought your crap with you.
We talked a little bit about this last week, where if that happens, you end up in a position where if you want to grow from that, you have to more or less kind of start from scratch, don't you?
Yeah, if you crystallize in what Gurdjieff calls the fifth body without finishing the fourth body, then you have to decrystallize the fifth body and start over again, which is very painful.
Yeah,
and
you
it
kind of
sucks.
have to, you said crystallization, you kind of have to shatter everything you come to trust in as true up to that point, in a way. All the fantasies that you built up and accepted as your reality have to be done away with somehow, so that you can build back up in a way that is establishing a more solid foundation for real maturity, as opposed to the illusion of maturity.
Yeah, words are hard, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was first learning this, my teacher would be talking to me about it and talking to me in English, and then I'd get a string of Turkish, right? Because he had no way of explaining to me in English what he was talking about. And I had to go back and look at my dictionary and talk to his wife and get it kind of translated. And it's never quite the same.
Made you work for it, huh?
Yeah.
But it's worked for the teacher as well to try and convey these things, and that
Oh, yeah. I could
takes
tell how
practice.
frustrated he was when he was banging his head against the wall of English. That's how I used to think of it.
Yeah. Not surprising. Any questions so far? Sheree, looks like you have one.
Yeah. Can you give me a scenario where that maturation is operating? A situation.
For yourself, you mean? A Cherie might do it this way kind of scenario?
Bad Cherie, good Cherie?
There is no bad Cherie. There are times with your family where you step outside of yourself and outside of your reactions, where even though you may want to strangle your brother or your sister-in-law or wall your mother up in a little room somewhere, where you step away from those and you act for those people's greatest good without allowing yourself to be affected by your own conditioned responses. I can say this with certainty because we've talked about this. I have seen you do this. And that's a decent example of what I'm talking about here. Being able to consciously choose to act in the best interest of others. Even though your so-called natural response would be to strangle them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that really makes sense, because it's like you have to rise above that urge to strangle or explode or whatever and look at a bigger picture, not this little thing that's falling away, just to be able to go back, take a step, take a breath, and then choose something that's got an outcome that's maybe entirely different to where everybody's veering towards.
Yeah. And that's what we were just talking about with our Indian friends. That transition where you are no longer just reacting, but you're making that pause to continue to act consciously.
Is that aligning with God's will versus your own will?
You could describe it that way. I mean, I tend to shy away from using the word God because it scares people so much, but yeah.
Mm.
If you're afraid of the word God, I didn't say that.
Or a higher will, the higher will.
Yeah.
Mm.
The greatest good, the aligning with the harmony of the universe. How's that?
Highest good is another term.
Yeah.
A lot of people
Woo
use
woo
these days.
there. Bit woo
I
woo.
know.
Yeah, a little
exactly.
bit. Sorry.
Yes. Okay. The terms, as long as they can convey that concept, yes, that's helpful. Thank you.
Good. Yes,
And
and
Rajan has a comment here.
or whoever's at the keyboard says, Kitab. Maybe the soul helps us to take a zoomed out view, see the bigger picture, as in the non-self-centered view, and then take a decision based on that.
I would say that that's a pretty decent description. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this also goes for like things around being nice, right? Like I'm having a hard time coming up with an example, but I'm intuitively picking up on this sense that sometimes things that we think are good and helpful and all of that stuff are coming from our egos rather than or what we imagine to be good or what we want to be good rather than what is actually helpful and beneficial for another person. And I think that's another trap that we can get stuck in as well. And Yeah.
Yes. Can we say that the pose that we made, you know, we talked early about the pose can be the bridge between the instead of reacting, just being in the state of maybe proacting and not acting automatically.
I'm not quite understanding the question, which is my fault, not your fault.
I feel the same way. Yeah. If you, sorry, Hind, if you could be patient with us and maybe give it another try, we'll do our best.
No, that's okay. I know my English is not that good.
Oh no, your English is a lot better than my Arabic, so never make apologies.
Lately we talked about the pause.
Yes.
Yeah. Can we say that it can be the bridge between the,
Aha. Yes, we can say exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice and good.
Yeah,
Connecting
that's
the
a good
dots
catch.
there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's an important thought. Let's pin that. But I also want to touch in on Kitab saying, you know, what I was describing, he gave a quick 2-word way of talking about that mechanical goodness. Yes.
Yeah, that's a perfect phrase for that.
I mean, it's the mechanicalness is not always hurting people. It's not always the impulse to do harm so much as like to meddle or to want to look good in front of other people by doing quote unquote good things.
Or
all of
just
that
the
shit.
mechanical goodness. It's like yesterday we met 2 girls on bicycles.
Oh yeah.
They were
Story time.
very nice human beings. And they kept asking us, is there anything that we can do for you? Now, the fact is that they were Mormon missionaries and they would have liked to
Have a
convert us
doorway
to,
in.
yeah, but it's like in their world, they want people who they can do things for, who need them so that they can then use that as a lever for conversion. And they found it hard to believe that Nora and I didn't need anything.
We were like, can we do anything for you? What do you need?
Yeah.
But
And they did not know what to do with that question.
No, we were just all good. And we didn't say go away or anything like that. So
yeah, we were nice to them. But it was niceness out of choice.
Yes.
And niceness with an edge.
Definitely. As is wont to be the case. But I think that another thing is for them, they don't perceive it, of course, as mechanical within themselves. They're like, oh, this is the right thing to do. And they aren't questioning. They're not looking at their own behavior and thinking, but why am I doing this? It's just the thing to do.
Yeah, well, they're doing it because unless we join their fan club, we're not real.
Right.
Which
ultimately,
ultimately that is the truth of the Abrahamic religions. If you're not in the club, you're not real. And that's not just Christians, it's Jews and Muslims as well. I don't know about Sabians because I don't know that I've ever met one, but I suspect.
Sabians, yeah. But that is neither here nor there. And thank you to Kitab for helping me put words to that. And Hind, in her brilliance, has brought up this concept of the pause as that bridge between the quote-unquote lower and quote-unquote higher centers.
And since we've done a talk on that specifically, I will link that in the end of this as well.
The end of the video, yeah. Jonathan, how are you doing so far?
Yeah, I had a question.
Hmm.
So if my regular emotional center is experiencing emotions, it can be positive emotions or negative emotions. Like I can feel hate, and sometimes it can feel good, and usually it feels bad. Or excitement is often good, but sometimes it can be like an anxiety excitement, which is a bad feeling. But from what I'm gathering from this, if I was working from this higher emotional center, if it's an emotional center, there's still got to be the experience of emotion involved.
Aha. No. Interestingly enough, according to Mr. G, there is no connection between the emotions of the emotional center and what happens in what is called the higher emotional center, which may be better called the higher heart center, because it has nothing to do with these regular kinds of emotions. It has to do with conscience, empathy, and connectedness to the one.
Jonathan, did you have any other thoughts you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
needed to jump in there
No.
real quick so that we didn't
No,
get too
I
far
know.
down
I
that
mean,
road.
this is
Yeah.
that's why I'm trying to. What I'm suggesting is there is a love that can be experienced that is nothing to do with the good feeling of love, or there's a sadness that can be experienced that has no sadness about it, yet it must still be described as love or sadness.
You're absolutely right, and you're becoming a poet. This is the task of all poets, is to try and describe this, even though they will inevitably fail for all people who have never touched it. So there. But you are absolutely, totally correct in what you were saying. Which is kind of a drag, because you give me nothing to argue about with you.
No need. That's good. Kitab, did I see you unmuted briefly, or I'm just seeing things? Okay, no big deal.
So, what do you do with this? This is not something I can give you. Well, I've already given you the practices for this, because they are the practices for the first two souls. To deal with the physical soul, the embodied soul, and to deal with the moving soul. Those things open up the gateway to this. And that gateway opens up more or less naturally along the path of working on this lower stuff. I hate that term. This other stuff.
Basic. I mean, it's not. That's kind of a tough word too.
Yeah. There is no good word in English for what this is, and lower is the wrong word.
Sometimes I like foundational because it gives that sense of it's something you build on.
That's good. I like that. We'll call
Yeah.
it foundational. The foundational material is working on the moving, the emotional, and the intellectual center, and building the magnetic center. That's your foundational work. As you begin to complete that, that naturally opens up a connection to the higher souls. The higher souls are there. They're waiting patiently. They may be tapping their foot. I don't know, but they're there. And your job is to connect to them through that work, through the work of breaking down your mechanical self, breaking down your conditioned self.
So that's an
And-
interesting.
Yeah,
Sorry, finish your thought. If you
I was
would.
going to say that's why I chose the quote that I did for today.
Let's
And
revisit that.
yeah, let's revisit that. This is from a great Sufi teacher from the Maghrib. He lived in Egypt, but his teachings went west instead of east. His name is Ibn Ata'Allah. And he said, when the heart becomes empty, the minbar, minbar is in a masjid, in a mosque. There is a place where there are several steps that goes up to a place where you stand, and the imam will deliver his sermons from there.
It's kind of like a pulpit, and also
Kind of, but
not.
pulpit's the wrong word for
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
But if you need a visual, it's kind of
Yeah.
like that.
When the heart becomes empty, the minbar of divine oneness is placed therein, and the Sultan of gnosis sits upon it. This is a perfect description of what we're talking about today. The heart becomes empty, it becomes quiet, it becomes still. And this allows this connection to the higher heart center, to the higher emotional center. And when that happens, I love the term Sultan of Gnosis.
It's got
Comes and
meat
sits
to
upon
it.
it. Yeah, it's got meat to it. And when that happens, you get a certain kind of spiritual stuff, guidance, whatever you want to call it.
I also feel it kind of creates the space to experience emotion without reacting to it, or without having to feel a certain way.
Yeah. And that gets into what Jonathan was talking about,
Yeah.
which is the stuff we can't talk about, which is why we need poets.
Poets come. Yes. So one thing I wanted to touch on before I forget this is that we have been using the phrase like building a soul. And it seems there's like a transition in this conversation we're having currently, where we are connecting to something that is already there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, building a soul. Now, you have to understand Mr. Gurdjieff. Mr. Gurdjieff fixated at point 8 in the beginning of his life. For those of you who know your Enneagram of personality. And he preferred to always, whenever possible, upset people
Right.
as the quickest way to rattle their conditioned selves. And so he would say, you don't have a soul.
Yeah.
If you want a soul, you have to build one. And if you don't build one, when you die, you're gone.
So there's a purpose to that.
There's a purpose to
definitely
that.
a purpose that serves. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's to get people to get up off their asses and do the work,
Mhm.
basically. And in a certain sense, he's right, because we think of our personality as soul, and that is something that is transitory with the body. There is that which persists, and the higher heart center, the higher intellectual center speak to that. But until we can get the foundational work done, We have no idea what that is. No connection to it.
It may as well not exist. It may
It
as
may
well
as
need
well,
to be
yeah.
built. Yeah. Yeah. So it's
That's
a
my
useful
that's my theory.
metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I'm glad we kind of created a little bit more clarity around that as much as one can, given
Yeah.
the weirdness of the subject matter.
So, any more thoughts and questions? Show of hands, who thinks we're all crazy?
I'm always going to say yes.
Yeah.
So.
Can you just elaborate on one more thing you written in the email, which is the relation to man number 5?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we didn't.
Fully develop this, you become a man number 5. Can you just elaborate on that, please?
Yeah. So, in Gurdjieff's sexist cosmology of human beings, he called them all men. I prefer calling them humans because some of them are girls. And we like girls.
They're all right.
Yeah, and they
Pretty
ain't
cool.
bad. Yeah. So, everybody is either human 1, 2, or 3. They start out with one of those. My old friend Dave calls them mind shapes, which I don't know. It's no more or less confusing than the other way. But so a person who is human number 1 is deeply involved in the body. Think mesomorph. A person who is man number 2 is involved in the emotional body. Think endomorph. And a person number 1 is stuck in their head, and they would be your ectomorph.
These are like old school body shapes. So you're just
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I figured I would throw them in because it makes me sound smarter.
Okay,
So,
that's
everybody is more or less one of these to a greater extent than the others.
Hmm.
And that is kind of the nature of the thing.
And I
And-
know that we've mentioned in the past that none of these are like improvements on
Yeah.
each other. They all have
No.
their own issues.
They all suck. They
Yeah.
all suck. Yeah. And they suck equally. There is no one of them that has greater suckage than any other one of them.
So that's 1 through 3.
Yeah. Now, man 4 is a human being who has begun to or has finished crystallizing their Kejjan body, is the way
Right.
Gurdjieff said it, created their magnetic center. Or as we would say, create the space where the parts can become reunited and become one, create the space where this pause can happen. This is the 0.5 on the Enneagram, the point of most work is creating this. Now, man 5, which is a very, very high state, is the person who has connected to the Sultan-i-Ruh, who actually has real objective conscience, who has true objective empathy, who doesn't have mechanical empathy, doesn't have mechanical conscience, but has the real deal. Man 6 is very, very high. And we'll talk about man 6 next week. And then you have man 7, which is like the highest of all. And, only the greatest of the great will ever get there. And we may not even talk about that because that is outside of this particular line. Man 7 or human 7 is something totally different. And I'm pretty sure I've met a couple of them in my lifetime, and it was scary impressive.
Probably a story for another time.
That's definitely a story for another time. One of them was my teacher in India, who was Sivayat, and he was deep. It's hard to describe how deep he was. And another was one of my Sufi teachers, who was like, you know, knock you back if you let even a little of his energy out. But those are stories for another day. We'll wet your whistle. So, any last thoughts or questions or queries or contemplations?
Did we have an exercise for this one, or is this not?
No,
really? Yeah.
the exercise for this one is do the other exercises first.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sure, you good? Yeah.
When you were in the company of those men,
Who says they were men?
I was just going to say that. So teachers, I won't give them any. How did you see other people affected and changed just by their presence?
With both of them, to spend any time in their presence would either wake you up or make you crazy.
Mm.
Because you could not hold on to your sleep around them.
And if someone wants to, that's crazy making. Yeah.
Yeah, if somebody wants to hold on to their sleep and they keep getting nudged into awakeness, it can be more than a little frustrating. And I used to see people go away from both of them like really angry because they felt like, oh, I didn't get the answers to my questions. I wanted to know all of the secret stuff, and I didn't get that. All I got was this smiling dude.
Yeah, and that's funny because everyone has this stereotype where the teacher makes you feel good and you walk away feeling warm fuzzies, like you've been hugged by an angel or whatever. I don't know. You know, just this sense of, oh, they bring relief to my heart, and that's not. That's giving you
Rajan
good
and company have to take off,
Yes.
so thank you, and
All good.
it was
Yes,
lovely
take
to
care.
see all of you again. Hopefully, again soon.
Thank you, Mushtaq. Thank you. Thank you.
And we had somebody who joined at the last moment, and I let them in because nothing else we can say hi.
Yeah.
Now, I like that last comment about, being able to shake a person enough that they can't hold on to their sleep, and that that's actually great to be shaken like that, to actually feel you're shifted in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a pretty incredible quality to have.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
So, Jim.
I saw Hind was unmuted at some point.
Okay.
And then we can touch in with Jim.
Yeah.
Yes, just for the 7 stages of human development, there are the 3 type of human.
Mhm.
They are focused on, did they refer to the numbers on the Enneagram 1, 2, and 3, or
Not exactly. You can take there are two things that we're looking at here if you want to look at it from the Gurdjieff teachings. One is the 7 stages of the human being, which would be equivalent to the 7 levels of the nafs, starting with nafs al-amara and ending up with the nafs al-safiya. And then you have the 4 souls, which are the ruh. So you have nafs and ruh working together.
Okay. Yeah, they're not the same. They're kind of parallel, aren't they?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Both are important. All right, so we have that. Then we have our last person who we may or may not hear from.
Hi.
Hello, hello. Well, it's the first time I'm joining, so thank you for letting me in.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And are we pronouncing your name correctly? I'm assuming
How
it's
do you
Turkish.
prefer?
So
Yeah.
Exactly, it's Turkish, it's Cem, yes.
yes.
Gem. Okay.
It is. I'm joining in from Belgium, so it's pretty late or early here. It's 4:30 in the morning. So.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I have been wanting to join for a long time, your live presence, so it was actually nice
Yay.
to join.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Did you have any questions for us?
No, not really. I enjoyed listening a lot. So,
Great. All right.
Well, marhaba.
merhaba.
We're very, very happy to have you.
Same as well.
Well, with that, oh, sorry, did you have something you wanted to add?
Just
Jen?
wanted to say I look forward to the next time. So
Yes.
Of course.
And keep an
We're happy to
eye
have you
out
anytime.
keep an eye out for our other talk. We only do that once a month, but we do that in our morning time to make it easier for people who live in Europe to join us.
yeah, I heard the video on YouTube. Yes,
Yeah,
I
that's
appreciated that when I heard it.
every third Sunday our time at 10:30 a.m.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Pacific time. Yeah.
Yeah, which works out, I think, to about 7 in the evening your time.
Oh, perfect. Right after dinner. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that, if anyone doesn't have any last thoughts to add, but you, Jonathan, you good? Okay. Yeah.
All
So
right.
Brady Bunch mode, I guess.
Yes. Yeah,
All right.
there we are. And bye, folks.
Wave to everyone here, wave to everybody watching on the replay, and we will see you next time.